Hello and welcome to Healing Tips from the Heart, Intuition with Helpers, Healers, and Guides. I am your host, Dr. Lori Hops, licensed psychologist, writer, and artist. I've explored mind, body, and spirit related to intuition, or your personal guidance system, since early childhood. Meet my guests who have learned from their personal and professional lives to explore vast realms of knowing, synchronicities, and overcoming challenges. Their stories may inspire you with tools to enhance your daily living and relationships. Hello and welcome today, my special guest, Jondi Whitis. Jondi is an accredited, certified master trainer and trainer of trainers with EFTI, which is Emotional Freedom Techniques International. She is a speaker, a podcaster, and an author with a background in film and TV production. But mostly she works now with humanitarian work internationally and providing resources for other providers around the world. And this is partly covered in one of her books that she's published with Dr. Deborah Miller called Compassion in Action, Emotional First Aid for Children, How to Quickly Help in Times of Trouble. And I am so grateful to have you here today, Jondi. It's so good to see you.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on.
So happy. And I would like everyone to know that I have met you in person several times through the Association for Comprehensive Energy Psychology. And I have really enjoyed seeing your presence there and all the relief work and education that you do. You've led conferences on the East Coast of the US and just a bright presence in the field. So thank you so much.
I appreciate your saying that. It's very kind.
So is there anything else you'd like people to know as we get started to kind of peel back the layers of all this great work you're doing?
Well, I do think I'm going to take a page out of one of my many mentors, Ann Adams, who I call the original EFT master that created that program long ago. She has really taught me that it's about the application of what we know. And so I think that's a rich theme for all of us, especially since most of the people who might be interested in this would be practitioners or facilitators of some kind of healing paradigm or protocol. That would mean it would, I think, do for everyone that it's about the application of your art.
Beautiful. And so can you give us maybe an example of something that you're excited about or that you've seen be especially effective in how you apply this?
Sure. A great many people talk about when they're in the zone. And I think all of us have some kind of story to tell that it felt so good because we were both in the zone. And there's a way to actually cause that to come about. And it does have a lot to do with what you learn, how well you learn it, practice, developed confidence, and then you bring all that into presence with the person and you can feel the difference. Somebody may be really smart but not very present. Somebody may know all the rules of the paradigm and yet not apply them very well. And so when I'm in the zone, I know that all systems are go and it's clicking and we both feel the beauty and the joy of the gift that's being shared together. That's how you know.
Oh, wonderful. And for those who are unfamiliar with EFT, could you give a brief explanation of what that is so that we can join you in the zone?
Absolutely. EFT, Emotional Freedom Techniques, is a collection of what the field is called energy psychology, although I don't think that's a great name for it. I think it confuses a lot of people, but it is about the energy of humans our bodies are energy systems, and we interact with each other. We can feel that, right? So EFT is a collection of techniques that deals with the energy of the body, and it is generally in the United States done on oneself beside another person who's doing it on themselves. What are they doing? They are percussively tapping on acupressure points that are from the 5,000-year-old Chinese systems that acknowledge health as balance, right? So EFT addresses imbalance in the energy systems of the body. That might be the nervous systems, the neurological systems, the physiological or somatic systems. The great news about EFT is it addresses all of them simultaneously. So it's effective and it's rapid. It's easy to do. It's easy to teach. And the results are very long lasting. And we now have a body of a lot of field studies in peer-reviewed journals that prove that to be true. So that gives us all confidence, even though my recommendation is showing someone how to do that, they can feel immediately something is happening. So feeling is believing in this particular case. What do we use it for? Gary Craig, who codified several things into this tiny little effective algorithm we call tapping or EFT, he said famously a long time ago, try it on everything. And so we do. It's amazing how many uses we can find for it, from anxiety to trauma remediation and everything in between. Cravings, bad habits, personal transformation, performance, right? And so there's so much it has to offer. That's why I think in my Venn diagram, the sweet spot is EFT, because it is so effective at weaving in to any use that you have in mind. So again, it's fingertip percussive tapping on acupuncture points that goes into the body through our percussive actions. It makes a mechanism for addressing the imbalance. Many people that are more interested in the sciencey part, I'll just say one thing about it. One of the many mechanisms we're noticing through functional MRIs is that it addresses quickly the amygdala threat response and turns it around. It quells it, turns it off, turns it around. And so the nervous system that is sympathetically engaged will become parasympathetically engaged, which is our rest and relax phase. So that's what we know about it, and you can use it on anything.
Oh, great. Thank you. That's a great explanation. My mind goes to two different places. One is international, the other is children. So I'll take the international one first, because you made a point of saying in the US, we teach someone to self-apply these tapping. And just to say, it's basically the head, the torso, and sometimes the legs, the fingers, depends which system you're using. There's different systems that use different parts of the body. But what's the difference between US and international? Because this audience is an international audience, so I thought I would include more people than that.
Fantastic. So what we've noticed when working with our international colleagues is that the US pretty much invented litigiousness, which means invented taking offense and going after people legally. We invented this apparently. And so we've become risk averse. Which functionally means I'm not going to tap on you, generally speaking, in case that touch is perceived as not safe touch, not granted or informed or consented to touch. Now, most everybody I've ever met is not going to be tapping on anyone without those things. Would you like me to? This is what it's like. Would you like to feel that? I'll be happy to do that for you. Or maybe you're incapacitated. So I can't use my hands very well. Would you tap on me instead, right? But again, that's invited consent. But we are so risk averse in the United States that we generally go, you know what? I'll show you and I'll do it with you side by side, but I'm not going to touch you unless I have a license to touch, which might mean a body therapist of some kind.
A nurse, a chiropractor,
right?
massage
Or a
therapist.
massage, right?
Yeah.
Um, any of those arts generally have in mind that person is licensed to safe touch.
Mm-hmm.
But just in case, the US, you will primarily find people tapping side by side or in front of one another, but not on each other. That is not true in most of the other countries in the world.
Okay. And is there any, I haven't known of any research comparing the two in terms of effectiveness, whether it's more effective to tap on yourself or have someone tap on you. I don't
That's a
know.
good
I'm not
question.
aware of any.
I don't think I know, but if I was looking, I would probably ask Peter Stapleton. She's our chief researcher at the moment
Yes.
and has put an awful lot of researchers into the field with various questions and has been able to bring a lot of research to, I just want to say, everyday use and knowledge.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that explanation. So clear. And now I'm thinking about talking to John Freedom or PETA about that. It could be
That's
a cool blog to touch or not to touch someone else, and all of that. But getting to the children, because you said this is really shown to be safe for many different populations, including children. And I have a background as a licensed psychologist, and I started my training career in conventional psychotherapy, working with children and families, and there weren't a lot of us. And so when I first came to this energy psychology community, it was refreshing to see that there were people who were also using this with children. So if you could speak more about that, that would be really great. With an eye towards the international humanitarian
yeah.
relief work, that would be like ideal if you wouldn't mind uh,
Well, let's
sharing
see
with
how.
us.
Let's jump in and see how we do.
Yeah.
The great news is it's so simple that you can teach it to a 2-year-old. Now, do I mean the same kind of full-blown version that you would use as a therapist? No, I don't. But do I mean a credible version of self-care? Yes, I do. It's that simple. And what we do know about young children and their development is that they copy. They learn by copying. So it's very easy to teach them. And it's very easy for them to teach each other because they learn primarily from each other as they age away from the parent
Mhm.
or original caregiver, right? So that's the great news. And it's so forgiving that we don't have to worry about them getting it perfectly right. I know that you've probably seen children before who are a little over concerned with getting it right. And as Jondi says on her big t-shirt, there's a reason for that. I just don't know what it is yet. Because everybody's different and they all grow up conditioned differently.
Mhm.
But we do know that children can be taught easily because we can do fingertip, we can do whole hand, we can do cupped hands, flat hands, we can do fast or slow. In other words, we can accommodate any kind of response that they have. And it was my pleasure to teach many children this back when I was doing some teaching artist work, because frequently in schools, children are a little overstimulated in one way or another. So there was always a moment that we could say, let's do a little learning readiness. And therefore, we can just spend 2 minutes together going tap, 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 tap. And depending on their age, we can describe it differently to them. This works in different cultures as well. And we put in different cultural icons or conditioning based on who you're working with. So
Mhm.
this customized to the customer idea that I've long had is especially true for children. So for instance, there are adaptations that I'll teach them, like I call it whale breath. Okay. It doesn't mean anything except it makes an image or a metaphor very friendly for them. So I might say, let's breathe out like a whale. And we go, because it it presents this wonderful creative image for them, and everybody can do it. And it's not talking about how are you feeling, what happened, this and that and the other, which is a very cognitive pursuit. But as do I from studying classic psychology, that most of these issues that they're having in any moment are not cognitive issues. They're somatic issues. They're emotional issues. So giving them something visual that they can do, that they can immediately feel, is, I believe, one of the hallmarks of tapping and tapping adaptations made from that for children anywhere. Let's move that from an American child or a school child, something that we could all say, oh yeah, I pretty much know what that looks like. Let's move that into a situation, even in the United States, where like my friend Kristen Miller, who's spent about 10 years dealing with wildfire shelters for families. Now that child has a different set of issues, and they're still not cognitive, but we're dealing with something that's very real, and we don't know them, and it may not be a private situation, and it may not be appropriate to go very far there, but we can engage them. Our polyvagal systems studies now are showing us, what does your face and your energy do long before you say anything to that child? And vice versa, right? So what we can learn is how to best approach children in traumatic impact situations. So Deborah Miller and I wrote that book called Compassion in Action, which is emotional first aid for children. But I like the third subtitle best, which is How to Help in Times of Trouble. Right? So it can be dramatic, like I just said to you, or it can be, I am having a really hard day. Someone stomped on, she was mean to me. Doesn't matter. It's a hard day for them. So again, you're going to customize for that. But that's where tapping comes in so well. It's so forgiving. We can use words. We cannot use words. Use smiles to indicate what our intentions are towards that child, as well as the prosody of our voice, the closeness of our presence to them, the way in which we actually listen and receive them, the way that we express back to them their words, their expressions of the world, which means to the child, she heard me. She gets me. Maybe I could trust that person another minute or two. We'll see. So you take that into every international situation and you teach them about cultural conditioning and responding to that, setting up for that, learning about that, and expecting that. We teach them context. Where are you? What's going on for that child? What's likely to be appropriate based on that context and that culture? So this is how we learn the art of delivery. And that book has adaptations like whale breath that the child can lock on to, learn very quickly, and isn't too invasive for a situation where they are feeling not their best.
And I imagine that, and thank you for all of that. That it was very rich, and there was so much there that you shared. And I'm imagining, Kristen Miller and the shelter with the people who have had to evacuate because of the wildfires. We're filming this in October of 2024, and so we just had a series of 2 really big hurricanes in the southeast of the United States, and so my mind is there with those families too. And it is the children, but it's not just the children, it's also who the children come along with. And so teaching the parents or guardians or rescue workers or volunteers, there's a whole community that can really learn this and share it. So
I think you hit on the word, community. We do not live in a vacuum, thankfully. We're herd mammals. We don't live in a vacuum. We are connected to people for better or worse.
Yes.
But that connection is our secret sauce as humans, right? And so the one thing we do know, I've been working to try to infiltrate a lot of our practitioners who want to be of help in North Carolina and Florida and the Southeast. And we are a very varied group, all kinds of skills, personalities, geography, assumptions, religions. And so I'm trying to put a lot of resources out there for them, because it's not mine to decide where you're going and what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. For the people you're trying to serve to decide. And often, I will share this, often it's heartbreaking when they don't get it, or they can't hear it, or they're so overwhelmed they just can't take it in. Yeah. So even the very help they need, they refuse. So I'm trying to make these kind of resources that we're talking about right now so that I can just hand them out. And I've revitalized my Facebook page that says emotional first aid, just so I can keep putting resources on there every day. Mm-hmm. And people just scroll through and go, oh, videos with people like Kristen, like Placide, like Jean, all my friends that have experience in boots on the ground field work. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to take their 10 years, 20 years, 15 years, 5 years, and I'm trying to pull this up for you and hand this out to people so that you can be quickly informed about, I don't really love this phrase, best practices, because it's overused, mm-hmm. but functionally, I think that's what I'm trying to hand everybody is best practices for you. You take what you can from there and then go and deliver that love and service to the world.
Great. Thank you. It's very generous and important work. And I'm reminded of context, like you mentioned, and how important it is, and timing. And so there's a magic that happens when the context and timing match up and line up. And it's not always right after a disaster, because, people are overwhelmed and they're dealing with survival. But there is a time and place when those needs are met, mm-hmm. and then maybe there's time and space for other things to come in like this. So keep it going, because people will find what they need in the right time. And
I hope.
Yeah.
And to your point, I don't know exactly when this is going to be available or air, but what I will say is what Deborah and I outlined in the book. Hi, Sophie, you come up too? Okay. What we outlined in the book are the different phases of traumatic impact. Mm-hmm. There's just before it happens, like a hurricane is coming. We know it's coming. We don't know anything else, but we know we have to prepare. And the anxiousness and the fear that come with that are palpable. Mm-hmm. That's phase one. And then there's phase two, which is it's happening. Oh my gosh, I've never heard that kind of noise. I've never felt that kind of fear. I've never felt that kind of heat or whatever going on. And then there's it passed. Oh my gosh, I survived. We survived. I'm still here. Mm-hmm. And now what? Everything is a shambles. This is like another planet when I looked out the door. Mm-hmm. So there's that phase three. Then there's the moving into, I got to do something about this. We need to find our friends, our water, our dog, our car, our power, our neighbors, that phase. Mm-hmm. And there's moving past that into, we are learning how to live under whatever parameters are available. Like in Asheville, we are learning that there's a gray water brigade that comes by when we're lucky to use gray water to dump into our toilet tank so that we have a flushable toilet.
Yeah.
We're learning how to live.
The new normal.
Yeah. So sort of normalizing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then there's the long view. And that's where frequently we would see more therapeutic services coming into play.
Right.
Because I've had all this time to live through it, experience it, process it. And now I'm starting to put the pieces together, how I feel about that. Mm-hmm. Or what I'm going to do about that, how that's changed my life, and how I'm going to integrate all that information.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a great framework. I think that our listeners and viewers are able to say, oh, that was like when such and such happened to me, and I was in this stage or that stage, or I was available for help at this moment and not. Part of it is when you practice ahead before a disaster, just as part of your own daily self-care, then you're in an upsetting situation, you can instantaneously go to a regulating technique. And so I remember after I was studying these techniques and using them a lot and practicing, I was in a very minor but impactful fender bender. Someone came, I was still in the street, and someone came and hit me in behind in the car. And I took a breath and I realized I was fine. But the first thing that I did was try to stabilize myself in the moment, because I knew I needed to stay really focused to get all the information that I needed, to get out of traffic, all of those things. And so I immediately started tapping and breathing. And, I didn't remember exactly the algorithms and stuff, so I just went intuitively and decided, okay, I need to tap underneath my eyes, on the bone, on the cheekbone, right underneath the pupil. And I did some under the arm, and then I think I did some havening where I was just like calming, like brushing from my shoulders to my elbows gently. And I did a little bit of hand over the heart breath. And just in the space of 15 or 20 seconds, it's like I got calm, I got clear. I was like, I stopped shaking. And I said to myself, it's okay if I'm in shock right now. I'm still able to focus and do what I need to do. And it was such a gift. But if I hadn't practiced for multiple hours ahead, there's no way I would have taken that in that very moment.
Absolutely. I love the story. It's so accessible. It's so normalized for our country anyway. And I think of the idea of self-care comes in here. Self-care has to have some preparedness.
Yes.
In fancy talk, I've learned these skills prophylactically. In Jondi speak, it's like, I have practiced for just such a moment as this.
Mm-hmm.
Be able to take care of myself enough to survive, to be of service, to be functional. And now it's time to have those techniques that I've learned and put into the muscle, right? Into my muscle memory or my bicycle memory. And I can deploy them now. It's time, right? And that's such a beautiful way of making that accessible to people. I also give the analogy of, why the firemen practice all the time. And the firemen's boots and equipment and jackets and everything are precisely, practicedly lined up in just this order, because they know that human nature, when we are, as Dan Siegel says, flipped our lid, we cannot think about all of the wonderful things we know. It is not a thinking moment. It is a reactive moment. And so I need to plan for that, just like you did, with my skills and my tools and my stuff. So I'm not having to think about it. I've thought out this when I'm not in trouble, so that when I am in trouble, I can perform, survive, and be of service.
Right. And it can help so much right in the moment. And I think the thing is that you don't really think, you feel, and you go into the body. So I was trained as a dancer, and from when I was very young, and spent countless hours completely bored because the task was rehearse.
Yes.
And I am not one who likes to repeat things. I like to create and be spontaneous. But if you're going to be on stage, on a different stage with different people and things going wrong, so to speak, or unplanned at the last minute, and you never know, you have to have that rehearsal in your body so that you can be free to respond in the moment and not be robotic, and be able to be flexible. And so anyway, I
That's
can
a great
so relate.
analogy. I love that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm wondering if there's anything else that you'd like to share about maybe international resources or how you use this work that's inspiring for you and others that comes to mind.
Well, I hope that I will be able to, in this resource sharing, mine and others, convey this message. And it's especially, I think it's especially crucial for the international market. You know, we've been a world leader in so many ways for a long time. And sometimes I believe that that blinds us to the different needs, opinions, and ideas of other countries. We have assumptions. We all make them. It's just a human thing to do. I believe that this work helps us become much more self-aware. What am I thinking? What is the agenda I am setting? Is that appropriate? Have I listened? Have I asked before I launch with what I know you need? So there's a humility that comes with serving humanity. And it begins with, how can I help? That's a real question. Instead of, okay, I've got something for you. Here I am. You know, I'm here to save the day. There's a peculiarness to being an American, which I love, an invention-oriented people. It's like, let's do it. Let's make it, right? There's something beautiful about that. But if not tempered with the wisdom of the heart and the humility of the servant in service, I think we can get into some real trouble there and not be able to do what we came to do, which is, I would love to stand and deliver. I would love to show you these things that I know so well. I would love to be of help to you and teach you too how to have some things that might be very helpful to your people, to your children, to your cause, to your trauma response. All of that, I think, starts with the wisdom of the heart and humility. So that's what I'd like to add.
Oh, thank you. It's beautiful. I think it's really important to have that humility and perspective and look at our blind spots and listen really and engage and find out, creating a relationship and respect first. And then see what can be created that's mutually beneficial. And it might include these resources and it may not. It may go in a different direction. But I thank you so much for this. Yes, is there anything else you'd like to share as we get ready to say goodbye for today?
I would just like to share the fact that because you are intuitively guided, and you particularly like that, as do I, that our intuition is something that we add to, that we invite in, that informs our work if we'll allow it. And that, just like we were talking about earlier, that intuitional reception and ability to make it accessible to people, that's a practice skill too. And so it's one thing to have this gift, which I so appreciate and wish I had more of even, but it's another thing in how you apply it. How do you apply that intuition to your work? And the first place I think we could both travel to any country with is, what are you getting on this about how we can approach it? What are you getting about who is our person, our connection to do that? So I love that you're putting the intuition out in the world together with real practice skill sets as a combination. That, what's better than that?
Yeah, and then for the self-care as well. What do I need right now? So I used my intuition in that car accident to figure out what did I, and maybe it was different from what the manual said you should do for grounding or whatever. But I just knew that if I tapped underneath my eyes, that was immediately going to bring energy into my feet and I was going to feel more grounded and present. So, so you just let your intuition kind of guide you as to what you need, along with meeting other people and seeing what doors open. But I thank you so much for this today. I'm so glad that we met and got to share. And thank you for what you're bringing into the world and the doors that you're opening.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. If you want to learn more, you can visit my website for podcast and resources at hopshealingtips.com. You can also like, share, and subscribe to this channel. This podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only and is not providing healthcare advice. Please seek guidance from your professional healthcare team should you need assistance.